And Webster is the member for Mallee, back from another fortnight in Canberra. And tell us a bit about what you got involved in regarding the migration debate.
Yeah, look, hi Ricky, nice to talk to you again. I actually headed up to Sydney for a morning to speak at the Thomson Reuters Migration Summit, where there was plenty of migration lawyers in the room and those who play in the migration space, including the Productivity Commission Deputy Chair. He had certainly quite a bit to say with recommendations that they have in their Advancing Prosperity report they've just put out, where they are promoting a Grattan Institute and Treasury idea of a basic wage for those who come in from overseas, so temporary visas at $70,000 and permanent visa holders coming in at $85,000. Now, what's really concerning about that, and was certainly concerning people in the room, is that Australians are not earning those wages for those same jobs. So it will distort the market and is deeply concerning, and in my view should not be accepted as the way to go forward. Of course, I spoke about horticultural labour and health labour. Obviously, we're in crisis. The aged care sector needs 35,000 workers now. In terms of registered nurses, for the new protocols that the Labor government have instituted, mind you, they're backing away from as we speak, there is still a need for around 47, is my understanding, 47,000 RN. So, you know, we're in a world of pain. I don't need to talk to you about the dearth of doctors in regional areas. We're 35% down on our urban counterparts per capita. That's really deeply concerning. And then in the horticultural industry, as far as I'm aware, National Farmers Federation have not backed up from their need for 170,000 workers. So we are in desperate need. And I note this morning, I'm sure you will have seen it as well, there was an article about, you know, help, we've got to stop the migration. It's all dramatic. We're going to have 650,000 people come into Australia and we've got no housing. But we need these people for work because we don't have the workers. So this is a tricky problem, and the Labor government is governing, I would remind them, and they need to do something about it.
Yeah, I was at a mining dinner during the last week where a demographer, Simon Kirschmeyer, was giving a great presentation about how our population is going to keep growing quite rapidly in coming years, largely because of migration. But that housing shortage is a major roadblock in terms of that actually happening. You've got to wonder how many will come, can't find a house and go, I'm going back.
Well, exactly. And again, one of the other articles that I read this morning in the housing industry, we have had fallout. Insolvencies have grown, look, I'm just going to put around about 30% since in the last 12 months, which is deeply concerning. I think from memory it was around 1,500, but I'm sure you can find the data on that and present it accurately. But there was a huge number of building construction players in the market who have become insolvent due to lack of workforce, due to cost of supplies, due to delays. It's just extraordinary. And of course, then you've got the inflationary market that we're currently sitting in. So it is a world of pain. Nobody is saying that it's not, but the Labor government is in government and it's got to solve these solutions.
Well, and we've also got, we'll segue to talking about banks in a moment, but the Reserve Bank meets on Tuesday, and whilst there were expectations they might pause the rate hikes, it might yet happen again.
Well, that's true, and I certainly hope they stay on their game and do what is actually necessary in this inflationary market. I remember the days very clearly in the 80s and 90s where our interest rate, I think our visa interest rate went up to 20%. You know, we're not talking anywhere near that. So there are people around my age who are going, yeah, look, it's not great. And it is certainly causing people who have got loans to be very nervous. But there's been an awful lot of discretionary spending that has been occurring for some time now, and people really need to start thinking about the priorities and what is really going to work for them.
Well, let's talk about the banks. They're always pretty quick to pass on whatever a rate increase might be. Bendigo Bank, where are they at with our bank closures debate? I recall them trying to make a virtue of how many regional services they have.
Yes, they do, and they sent me an email this week. They'd read my column saying that the banks need to be responsible and accountable to the regional communities that support them and not close their banks. They assure me that they're only closing agencies, they're not closing branches. So they have told me that the agencies they are closing are Warracknabeal at the DMA Tax Proprietary Limited. Foster's Men's Land in Stawell will be closing the agency. Kahuna at the Golden Rivers Real Estate Proprietary Limited, they're closing that agency. They're closing the agency at Sea Lake Pharmacy in Sea Lake, obviously. And they're also closing the Pyramid Hill agency at the Pyramid Hill Depot. And that's all by July. So it is really deeply concerning. I appreciate the fact they've let me know, but what it does is let down our communities because where are they going to bank?
And I find that remarkable given that it's about 28 years since they opened their first community banks in Western Victoria in Minyip and Rapanyup, not far from the places you say they're now closing branches. Have they lost their connection with the regional communities?
Well, I think banks make bank decisions on the basis of their bottom line. But I believe they have a moral obligation to be able to provide service, to continue to provide services to our ageing cohorts across regional areas in particular. I don't care if they close branches in the city because in the next suburb you're going to have another one. But in the regions, it can be a 100-kilometre round trip or further to be able to access a bank. And older people in particular, as we've discussed before, are not necessarily that savvy with online banking. They don't want to do that. They don't trust the internet with good reason. And so they want face-to-face confidential services to continue to be provided. This is a cost that banks, in my view, should be weighing up over a 20-year period when our 70-year-olds will probably, as they tell me, not be around, and it won't faze them if it all goes digital. But in the interim, there need to be measures to ensure that nobody is left behind. I think I've heard that statement before.
Yes, good point. And I think your National Party colleague, Matt Canavan, as the chair of the Senate inquiry into regional banking, he wrote to a number of banks asking them to put a moratorium on these sorts of closures. Do you know if they've sought that sort of moratorium on Bendigo Bank and these agency closures as well?
That's a really good point. I'll ask Matt that question. We certainly did ask it of the Big Four, and I had spoken face-to-face with the government liaison officer for Westpac when we were there back in, goodness me, months ago, and they did put a moratorium on not long after that. So it is a hot topic for regional MPs in particular. Whether the community banks have been requested to do the same, I don't know. I think there was possibly an assumption that community banks in regional centres would just do the right thing and continue to support, people who live in the regions. But, apparently not.
Well, we'll reach out to Bendigo and Adelaide Bank as well on that front. They did liaise with us previously about the inquiry. And Webster, the member for Mallee, is who you've been listening to. Thanks so much for your input on those important topics today.
Thanks, Ricky. Have a good day.